Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa Vasquez, founder of the Vasquez de Lara Law Group. And today I'm going to be talking to Megan Lewis, who is one of the therapists that we are partnering with in order to be able to bring a support group for parenting. As a family law attorney, I know that parenting is one of the biggest issues that we deal with, whether it's co-parenting, whether it's failure to co-parent, whether it's just parenting issues in general, because you're parenting a child that is not exactly wanting to be parented. And we thought that a great resource that our firm could provide for the community at large and or our clients is to be able to put together a support group for parenting issues. So today we're talking to Megan about what that's going to look like, why this is something that you should consider maybe signing up for, and what are some of the things that you can expect to get out of it if you do decide to join us. So Megan, how are you today?
I'm good. And you?
I'm good, thank you. So Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
So I am a licensed mental health counselor. I've been practicing as a counselor for almost 5 years, but I also have a lot of experience working with kids, teenagers, and their families because I used to teach before and got a lot of interaction in that arena as well. So all in all, probably working with kids and teenagers and their families for about 10 years now, actually. So I graduated from FIU with my bachelor's in psychology, and then I also graduated with a master's degree in counseling from Trinity International University. My goal is to help kids and teenagers be able to be stronger once they become adults, as they're able to go through counseling and learn coping skills and be able to learn how to manage their mental health. In the process, work a lot with kids and teenagers on improving relationships with their family members. So when you work with kids and teenagers, you work a lot with the parents as well, because
Definitely.
that is part of it.
So why don't you tell us about some of the common issues that some of the kids that you have seen and or some of the parents, obviously, that you've helped? What are some of the common issues that you see kind of come up a lot?
So probably the biggest thing I see is difficulty with communication. Communication is
That's a pretty common thing across the board, I think.
yes. And it's interesting because you can be talking to each other, and a lot of times there's the fighting and yelling and there's all of that craziness, but communication isn't always happening just because you're talking to each other, right? So learning how to communicate effectively and be able to resolve conflict, be able to have kids be able to express their emotions and do so in a respectful manner, and learning boundaries, being able to establish their own boundaries, but also learning to respect the boundaries that their parents establish for them. And then that's also sometimes the work with parents, because it's difficult. Like, as the parent, the concept of your child having boundaries can sometimes be challenging, right?
And I can imagine that once you have separated or divorced parents, creating those boundaries in a way that the child is okay can also bring a lot of friction.
I think one of the things I see the most is a lot of times the unresolved issues between the parents. Kids pick up on it. And as resilient as children are, and as innocent as they are, they're also very, very observant. So while obviously when you have the separation, the couple is going to be going through difficulties, being able to separate that and establish a co-parenting relationship, as challenging as it is going to be the most effective thing for the child. And sometimes we have to mediate that as well as therapists for the best interest of the child. And teenagers need it too. So
what are some of the other issues that you see besides communication?
Structure is one that I notice sometimes is difficult, especially with how busy everybody's lives are. So kids will have structure in school, but then get home and it can be difficult to figure out a structure that is in the best interest of the child, while also accommodating to maybe what their wants are. And then for parents, if things are very, very busy, balancing work and spending time with your child, like all of that can be, so it kind of a
Yeah.
time management can be challenging as well, but it is important. Children thrive on structure.
How frequently do you see the issues, especially with parents that are having difficulties, issues of mental health with the children?
How often? um
All the time. No, otherwise people don't come to you, right?
yeah. I mean, that's pretty much everything I see, and it is interesting because I think a lot of times parents, in the best interest of their child, will try to, I guess, mask, if you will.
Yeah.
And in reality, parents are dealing with a lot. There's stress, there's sadness. A lot of times they're dealing with anxiety and depression because of everything else going on, and trying to hold that back from their child. As much as I know parents are trying to protect their children from that, like I said, children are observant. They pick up on things. So one of the things I work a lot with parents is often to get them in, either in, sometimes in therapy, because sometimes it's necessary, but in a state of being able to establish self-care. Because I mean, when you if you fly, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can anybody else, including your child, right? So
Yeah.
taking time for self-care and making sure to be dealing with your own needs is very, very important, so that
Yeah.
your child is also able to have that stability, and it does affect their mental health as well.
So let's talk now a little bit about support groups and why is that a good idea? And what do you think people are going to be able to get out of coming to this parenting support group?
So while each person's experience is unique and individual, at the same time, there are others who are going through similar things, right? So having a support group is like having a community. There's the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, but I think a lot of times we miss that part of that includes having the support for yourself just as much as it is to have that influence in your child's life. And while in the States we do tend to be a little more individualistic, there is still something to be said about community and having that support. So a support group, you build a community of people who are going through, at the very least, a similar situation, right? Where they're, in this case, struggling with parenting, or and I mean, who doesn't struggle with parenting at one point or another?
Yeah.
So it's good to have people that are in similar situations, even though each one is going to be unique. There are going to be commonalities, and getting to interact with others and share your experience and have some of that input and compassion can be really, really helpful. And then we're also going to be including elements of psychoeducation. So how do you handle some of those difficult moments with your child? And while
Sure.
there isn't a handbook, there are things that we can look at in terms of techniques and ways to approach conversations or questions. Kids ask some out there questions, and it's like, wait, are you old enough to be able to know this? How do we go about that? So
Yeah.
while you can Google the answers, it doesn't have the same impact sometimes as getting that interaction and personal experience from other people as well.
So what do you think is going to be, some of the things that people will be able to walk away with? What are some of the tools that you think that coming to a support group will be able to enable them to walk away with?
That's a good question. Our goal would be to help with some of those things that I've already mentioned, right? Time management skills, communication skills, and then also how to teach their children some of the coping skills that they may be needing, or being able to recognize, hey, I think my child needs a little professional support, right? And there's no
Yeah.
shame in that. In fact, it's very useful. And so time management, structure, communication skills, as well as some techniques for parents to be able to manage their own emotions and how to handle, like in the case of separation, how do you handle the co-parenting piece? I would say probably those would be the main ones, but we have a good series of topics to be covering that will be
Why don't we talk about what are some of the common misconceptions about a support group that we want to make sure that people are not thinking of when they sign up for this? I mean, I can tell you some of my misconceptions, and then you can kind of so that this is therapy, and I know from talking to you that it's not, because it's definitely can't do therapy of 10 people at the same time. That this is something that anybody will have access to. And I know that you and I discussed the fact that this would be limited to only 10 people,
Mhm.
so that we'd be able to have that ability to interact with one another. So it's not some sort of, large group session that's open to anybody that wants to be there that day. I don't know if there's any others that you've heard of that, that we want to make sure that people are not making assumptions about what this will be.
Yeah. I
Um,
think part of the difficulty a lot of times is people are already hesitant to the concept of therapy or dealing with mental health in general.
yes,
So then support group
definitely.
just comes in with that. It's like, no, I don't need help. But there's no shame in that. So
Yeah.
that's probably what I run into the most.
So how are we going to make this work? What is that? Walk us through what a typical session is going to look like.
So we'll start off with an introduction of the topic.
And then
Provide
the topics will change every month, right?
Correct, yes. So we'll be dealing with something different each month because we are incorporating that psychoeducation piece, right? So not only are we looking at having that support and the empathy and the compassion and being able to have a place where you're able to have kind of an outlet, right? We're also looking to give our clients tools so that it's they can go out of it with something that they're able to implement at home as well. So we'll start off with the psychoeducation piece. We'll be looking at teaching some of those skills that we talked about earlier, the time management, how to implement structure, how to approach communication, answering difficult questions, those kinds of things. And as well as self-care topic, or the topic of self-care is one of the things that we'll also want to address because that is very important for parents. And then afterwards, we'll have a period of discussion about the topic, as well as being able to lead into what is going on with you, right? Because that is important as well if you're talking about a support group. So
What would be your answer to some objections to, to getting involved? Like, oh, well, am I going to be judged by the people that are there?
the whole concept of it is that you're with people who are at least going through a similar situation. Right. And at first it is uncomfortable. The first couple times that you're in a group with a bunch of strangers, it takes a little while to get acclimated. So I would encourage, if you start it, the first couple of sessions might feel awkward. It might feel kind of weird,
Yeah,
especially the part of talking about what's going on with you. But we'll start off like the first couple of sessions, getting to know each other a little bit more and building that up. But the reality is, as far as what I've seen, is very rarely do you have judgment towards a person. Sometimes it's more so a matter of like getting to know somebody else's circumstance. And while it might be kind of different or foreign, if you
sure,
approach it from that perspective of, I'm going to learn something, you will
sure.
likely have very different cultures because Miami is so diverse and you have different approaches to,
Yeah,
to living, even just in general. So, um,
sure.
I would say that we would encourage our clients to have an open mind and to keep in mind that it will progressively become more comfortable to share. And I would say, as
Mhm.
far as respecting your own boundaries, if there is some of that concern and fear initially, it's normal. But keep an open mind, and over time that can diminish.
What about issues of confidentiality?
So as a professional, the therapist is definitely not going to be going out and sharing confidential information. There are limits to confidentiality, but that generally has to do specifically with safety, right? So
Yep.
the parameters of that would be discussed in those first sessions and reiterated at the beginning of the group sessions following. But then beyond that, we would definitely encourage clients to maintain confidentiality so that the group works, right? Because if you don't feel
Right.
safe sharing in that environment, then it's not going to be as effective. And if there is a member who has a concern about something that they hear or anything like that, I would encourage them to talk to the therapist, to me, um, about their concerns, even if it is about somebody else, so that we can handle that in the most appropriate manner.
Well, I am super excited for anybody who decides to get involved in this new project, and I'm looking forward to seeing, seeing what good we can do in our community.
Yes.
So, if anybody is watching this and is interested in joining us for one of our support groups, the plan is to have one during lunchtime and one at night. That way, people who need kind of like that flexibility of being able to do it in different times will have that option. We're going to do the same topic every month. So 2 meetings, same topic. but the topics will change on a month-to-month basis. If you sign up for, we're going to post the link to our page where you can sign up to receive the information. And once you have the information, if you want to join us for that particular month, you'll be able to sign up. But as I mentioned, and Megan and I mentioned, it is going to be limited to 10 participants to make sure that the group makes sense and that it doesn't get a little bit too overwhelming with too many people. So it is going to be first come, first serve. Make sure that you pick one of those spots if it's something that you really want to get involved with. So I look forward to seeing you all, and thank you for watching.